I feel that I've never left York. I started here back in 1982 as an undergraduate student, as a very young teenager back then. So since then, I feel like I have never left. And I'm still very much a part of this community. The connections that I made with the various professors that I met, the relationships that I was able to develop and sustain over the years, they're what kept me engaged still in this community. And so where I sit right now as a Superior Court judge is directly related to my coming here at York University. And right now you may not realize the significance and the importance of your connections to York, but you know, without any doubt in my mind, I can assure you that you will have huge benefits. It's going to pay large dividends in years to come. Now, considering the audience, there is no doubt in my mind that each of you, in your own way, is making a difference, which has impacted those around you. As indicated, just by virtue of your involvement here, it is evident that each and every one of you are engaged in this community. Just being here this evening tells me that you are the leaders and future leaders who will be at the forefront of your various fields of endeavors and will be charting new courses for our future. My message to you is to stay your course, remain intellectually, politically, and socially engaged. Know in your heart that each of you can make a difference in the world in which we live. Each of us who are now alumnus of York are very fortunate to have had the privilege and opportunity to be educated here. We in turn should not take this opportunity and privilege lightly. Now, in preparation for my talk to you tonight, I reread Murray G. Ross's memoirs entitled The Way Must Be Tried, right? Tentata Via. You know, I would hope that each of you read this book, because he was the first president of York. Now, in his memoirs, he reflected on the first 40 years of York's history and how it came about through a small cadre of men who saw the growing need for a new university for the Toronto area and went ahead and started the process. These men were visionaries who understood the value of education and its benefits to not only the individual who acquires the education, but to the society as a whole. They understood the transformative force of education. Toronto and Canada was a very different place back in the 50s. And frankly, when I came here in the 1970s, it was a different place as well. Toronto's only university, the University of Toronto, was in many ways reflective of the Toronto of the 50s. While an excellent and prestigious academic institution, it was steeped in tradition and unabashedly elitist in composition, governance, and culture. Professor Ross describes the 1950s University of Toronto as a male bastion, and I would say it was a white male Anglo-Saxon bastion. Those are my words, where women constituted about 10% of the entrance class in medicine and dentistry, less than a handful in engineering or forestry, and a few others scattered over other parts of the university. Part House, he said, for example, was for men only. Women were allowed there only on special occasions and for drama practice in the lower regions of the house. All the departmental heads, deans, and other senior level administrators were male. There was neither diversity of culture or ideas within the makeup of the faculty and student body. It was out of this milieu that a few young men saw the need for another university, and York University was subsequently born, with an interdisciplinary focus and mandate. In 2006-2007, York enrolled almost 52,000 students in 11 faculties on 2 campuses, making it the 3rd largest university in Canada. More than 3,100 full and part-time faculty and professional librarians, are employed here. There are some 2,300 teaching and research assistants and roughly 3,500 full-time and casual non-academic staff that are on the payroll. What is really important is the connection of the student body to the people who teaches them here. The majority of the student body here is comprised of first-generation university-educated Canadians. York is described by York's official historian, Michelle Horn, has become a multi-versity, whose institutional present is linked to its past through its interdisciplinary commitment of faculty, members, and students to make an effort to look and reach across disciplinary boundaries in their teaching, learning, and research. The general education requirement adopted in York's very early days was at the heart of this commitment. Over the years, it has inspired or influenced many of the scholars, scientists, writers, and creative artists who have worked at York, as well as many of its alumni, more than 200,000 in numbers. Individually and collectively, these men and women established and sustained York's reputation across Canada and around the world. York University had made a huge difference in the lives of these hundreds of thousands of alumni who have been privileged to pass through its doors. I am an immigrant male who, while not the first in my family to be university educated, I was the oldest of my siblings to go to university, and since then, one of my sisters has graduated from here, and numerous cousins as well, one of whom is currently still here in his second year at Osgoode Hall Law School. I started at York in the early 80s, in 1982. I had both a feeling of excitement and trepidation. For me, university was always a dream, but the size of the place was intimidating. My fears, however, soon dissipated once I walked into the tents which were set up as an advising center for the new first-year students. There I was greeted by the inviting smile of an effervescent young lady who reminded me more of my mother. She waved me over to her table and introduced me to herself. And at that time, she was the head of the advising center. Her name was Nancy Akinyele. That day, Nancy took me under her wings, asked me what my interest was, and after telling her, she helped me select all my courses and directed me to Vanier College, the college I would subsequently become affiliated with and where I would live for the next few years as an undergraduate student. Through Nancy's guidance, my undergraduate years went rather smoothly. I joined a community of students in Vanier College. I became socially, politically, and intellectually engaged in the greater university life. We were able to do things and contribute in our own small way to impact in parts of the world that we've never been. We were able to develop some very significant and lasting friendships with many of my fellow students and professors. Until I graduated from law school in 1989, my whole life revolved around York University. I had both a part-time job here and summer jobs starting at the end of my first year. Many of my Christmases I would spend at various professors' houses with their families for dinner. To this day, some of my old professors are like family. Now, during my years at York, it were professors like Sheldon Levy, Marty Lockshkin, and you heard Dean Singer spoke about him, and his influence to me was great. I will never forget him because he taught me a course, and it was an elective course. It was called Greek and Biblical Traditions. And he taught it with Michael Creel, who at that time was the dean of Vanier College, the college that I was a part of. And interestingly enough, Nancy Akinyele that I spoke about, she was the assistant to the master of Vanier. And she directed me to Vanier, and I think somehow she got me to take that course, right? And it was after I completed that course that Professor Lochkin invited me into his office and says, Michael, you know, I was reading your various essays and your write-ins, and you know, I think that you have a very critical and analytical mind, and I think that you should probably go to law school. At that time I said, well, that time I was studying economics, and I was going to go on to do a master's in economics. He says, you know, if you gave law school some thought, I would support your application. And immediately I applied, and I got in, and it changed my life, and that's why I'm here as a judge. I indicated to you that I worked here as well, right? And so it wasn't just the professors that were significant in my life. It was also some of the staff people that I met along the way. Nancy was a staff person. I worked in the admissions office for about 9 years while I was a student. One of the other women that was working there, Barbara Lynch, she and I became very good friends, and I remember at one point she spoke to me about changing a career, and I suggested to her, why don't you consider law school? And Barbara immediately, and she went to law school, and she came back and she worked for me. She articled for me as an articling student. That was about 10 years ago, and now she's one of the senior Crown attorneys in Toronto. So connections, right, we're all interconnected, and it makes a huge difference. You know, people in relationship is really what makes the difference, and this is a great place for that. It's a community, and you are a part of that community. And my message to you is that each of you, you know, should take advantage of the relationships that you develop here at York. Don't burn bridges. Don't forget, as they've said, you know, to whom much is given, much is expected. And if you benefit, you should also give back, because you're the ones that need to pass on and reach back to the students that are coming up. And the quality of the institution will be judged on the successes that each of you will have in years to come. And the reputation of the institution is very much reflected on what you do once you leave here. There's no doubt in my mind that education is the single greatest force for equality in the world. It has a transformational power that transcends all barriers, racial, ethnic, cultural, and social. Each of you that are here this evening are beneficiaries of this great privilege. We must also understand that privilege confers obligations. I would suggest that each of us have the capacity and the mandate to make a difference. But in order to do that, we must each commit to the following. You must commit to follow your passion. Your passion should not just be an interest, but a burning desire for something within your inner gut that you feel drives you to wake up in the morning, and which creates an insatiable appetite inside of you to learn more and more. Secondly, you must commit to reason. How to think, how to ask questions, how to reject assumptions, how to exercise reason, and how to seek knowledge. The only way that you will grow intellectually is by examining your opinions and your assumptions, and in attacking your prejudices constantly and completely with the focus of your reason. It is through reason and constant reevaluation that progress is made. It's always more tempting and easier to accept the status quo and not question. But if the founders of York University had not applied this principle, York would not be here today. Thirdly, you must be committed to rejecting the inclination to be intellectually arrogant and embrace a sense of community and humility. We all have a natural inclination, especially as educated people, to want to credit our successes in our own intelligence and hard work and good judgment. There are many people in this country and in this world who are just as intelligent as us. A lot of them are more intelligent than us, just as hardworking, just as deserving of successes as we are. But for whatever reason, maybe a broken home, maybe poverty, maybe just plain bad luck, maybe where they were born in this world, right? These people did not enjoy the opportunities that you have here at York. Fourthly, I would ask that we all commit to be optimistic. Now, cynicism is often associated with learning, and I'm sure we can all understand why. Human history is full of much cruelty and suffering and darkness, and it can be hard sometimes to believe that a brighter future is in store for us. But in spite of all the negativities and the failings of the human condition, in spite of the failings of the past, for all of our current problems, more people are good. More people are positive. More people now enjoy lives of hope and opportunity than ever before in all of human history. Now, this is what progress is all about. And this progress has been the concerted efforts, not of cynics, but of visionaries and optimists. The people who deal with the world as it was, but who never accepted the status quo. They've never accepted that they were powerless to change the world and to make a difference. Each and every one of you that are here tonight, you have the capacity and you have the responsibility by virtue of the privilege that has been bestowed upon you, by virtue of the education that you've all benefited from, to make a difference. Thank you.